Welcome to ASD's Dowser Mastermind Conference Call. These talks are open to all and scheduled for the third Monday of each month at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. They last for about an hour. Today is the 20th of April, 2020. I'm G from Northern California Dowsers in Redding, California. NorCalDowsers.com. Jeanette and I will be joining your hosts, Sharon Hope and Ed Stillman, for tonight's program featuring Gary Plapp, which will be recorded and accessible at ASD's website under the Members Only section. Please hold your questions until the end of the guest speaker's talk. I'm now turning the program over to Sherry.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming. I hope you're all having a good time off. I guess most of you are home and have been for a while. So welcome, everybody, to our Water Dowsers Mastermind Conference Call. And we're going to have a few announcements first, and I'd like to put Scott on first. So Scott Pierce is going to make an announcement.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Good. Hey, I'm Scott Pierce. I'm on the nominating committee for the awards this year with Mary Petty and Leroy Bull. We have 10 categories this year. I'll give you the categories, highlights of them. The Dowser of the Year, Volunteer of the Year, Educator of the Year, Register of Recognition, Legend Award. Legend Award is person to anybody 80 years and older. The Paul Severn Award, that's anybody who's done 1,000 wells. Outstanding Chapter Leadership, Best Website, and Best Chapter Newsletter. If you know anybody out there is worthy of this award, send the bios to us at asd@dowsers.org. And we have to have it in by May 1st, and we'll make the decision who the winner will be for the 2019 awards. Back to Sherry.
Thank you, Scott. And next, we've got Susan Spooler, who's going to make an announcement about the West Coast Conference.
All right, now I unmuted myself. Hi, this is Susan Spooler, Director of the West Coast Dowser Conference and the Flagstaff Dowser Conference. We had to cancel the physical conference in Santa Cruz. However, we are going to have the first ever virtual West Coast Dowser Conference that will be run from my home in Westford, Massachusetts. We will be having all sorts of wonderful speakers and surprises and all sorts of amazing and interesting information for everyone. We'll be starting on Friday, July 3rd, and we'll be going just about straight through to we will be going straight through until Tuesday afternoon, the 7th of July. It is 4th of July weekend, and we will have more information and more details on our website, www.dowserswestcoast.org. And there's a phone number on there, and there's email addresses. And if you want to get in touch with us, please ask away. Thank you, Sherry and Ed.
Righto.
Thank you, Susan. And it sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds exciting.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, yes. We'll be having, I'll tell you one fun thing is our person that's doing our opening and closing ceremonies will be coming here and staying at our house. And we'll be doing that live, and my chapter and other like-minded folks will be here. We'll actually probably have a fire for our opening ceremony because I can do what I want on my property. So lots of exciting things, lots of surprises. It's going to be phenomenal. And I did offer to do this for ASD because they're looking to do a virtual, and we'll see if they take me up on my offer. So I'll be using GoToWebinar, which is the premier platform for virtual meetings. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that worked good for the West Coast Conference Committee meeting.
Yeah.
So great. Can you tell us some of the speakers that you're going to have?
Let's see. We have Alan Handelsman. We have surprise speakers that are going to be coming. Chris Gowen Anderson. She's will be there. We have Gladys McCoy and her crew will be teaching beginner dowsing. Advanced dowsing classes will be Susan Collins and Heather Anderson. We'll have our keynote speaker. Our keynote speaker is Maria Wheatley. Her website's Maria Wheatley, WHEATLEY.com, and she's from London. And her father was a master dowser, and so she does a lot of very interesting research on elongated and larger skulls and the geodesics of the Earth energies.
You might have Gary Plapp as well.
Of course I'm having Gary Plapp as well. And other surprise, I said to save the best for last, Gary. Come on. And Sharon Hope, of course, will be teaching. And, oh, my gosh, so many exciting speakers. So, anyways, we're looking forward to everybody joining us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, so it's time for us to go online anyway. This is exciting. Okay, and so right now I'd like to go ahead and turn this over to Ed Stillman, who's going to introduce our guest speaker.
Dowser Ed?
That's me.
Wow.
Okay. I'm ready to roll. Gary Plapp is a master dowser of 50 years, and he is a dowsing instructor, speaker, writer, inventor, workshop leader, tour guide, and earth energy researcher with 100 wells located. He is also an intuitive channel and reader of 30 years. Gary conducts water, mineral, and earth energy dowsing, along with environmental corrections for homes and businesses. He also conducts archaeological dowsing at sacred sites around the world, including Africa, Europe, Latin America, and the U.S. Gary has been a aerospace research electrical engineer for 40 years, most recently at NASA, that's NASA, Ames Research Center. And Gary is going to actually be he already is, the founder and president of the Los Lunas Willow Benders Dowsing Chapter. So Gary, please begin by telling us how you got started in dowsing. It's yours now.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Yeah, it all started actually when I was 14 years old, and a buddy of mine had a new game called Swami Knows All, which consisted of a colorful board game and a fish weight and a nylon string. And what you did was swing it over the game board, and Swami would answer all your questions. And it turned out it worked. And I was pretty amazed. So I knew something was going on. So I started exploring dowsing in more depth and got into it professionally when working with tutoring with Bill Cox in Southern California, who was a terrific mentor and really a great guy. And also did a lot of pyramid research with him as well. So it's been a long journey, slowly evolving over time, but I've learned quite a bit, and I'm still learning, have a lot more to learn. But I do know that dowsing is a tremendous asset to a person's life because it expands your awareness, your functionality, your capability, your choices, and awareness to a tremendous degree. And to this day, I use dowsing almost on a daily basis. And continue to do water wells, scientific dowsing, detrimental energies, scientific research, so a number of things that I continue working with on dowsing. Ed?
Yeah.
You there?
I'm here.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. You may proceed from there and go on.
Yeah.
You got it good.
Yeah, I started working for NASA back in the 80s, and I actually used a closet dowser, I guess you'd call me, and started dowsing research, solving problems for NASA. I was with the Life Sciences Flight Experiments program at the time, and would fly to various NASA sites, and especially Kennedy for launches, and launch hardware preparation. And a lot of times they would fly me out for solving problems. And of course, I always used my dowsing kind of in the secret and unknown, and solved a lot of problems. I ended up with over a dozen awards from NASA for saving their bacon on many occasions. And of course, dowsing was not mentioned at the time, but I guess you could say I was a dowsing whiz kid for them at the time. So it was a lot of fun, and working outside the box.
Yay.
I also started my own biofeedback company, which you're aware of.
Oh, yeah.
It was back you bought some of my equipment. It was back in the 70s. Yes, a lot of that was developed using dowsing, and that was for brainwave research, electromyograph, muscle tension, temperature, and quite a number of biofeedback things that was discovered that people could actually learn and train their bodies if they had some sort of a feedback mechanism to work with.
Sure.
So it was really a wonderful tool. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Proceed.
Do you have any more questions?
Oh, we'll answer the questions as we go on.
Okay, well, I just wondered if you wanted to space it I could talk about my water well dowsing.
Yeah, that would be.
How did you get started in water well dowsing, Gary?
Yeah, I've been doing that. Well, actually, Ed was involved with me ever since the beginning of that. I had asked his assistance when I started out. I had a water well on property that was in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It was situated over an old railroad tunnel. So if you drilled too deep, you would lose all your water into that tunnel.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it was quite of a hairy situation. But between the dowsing and then working with photographs and on-site dowsing, we were able to pull it off and estimate where the train tunnel was in reference to the underground aquifer. And I think we got a good well out of that. So that could have been a pretty dramatic situation if we hadn't been carried. So I appreciated Ed's expertise on that.
Well,
so,
thank you. Long time ago.
Yes. But regarding water well dowsing, there's a lot of things that you really need to be aware of for best success, which also applies to other applications as well, and that's to get permission. The old may I, can I, should I. And getting permission is very, very important, especially when you're dealing with properties that may have been cursed or under the protection of Native Americans and other things that are going on, spirits and so forth. So I learned this the hard way years ago, dowsing in Carmel Valley, where there was developing a water well dowsing for a spiritual center in the Carmel Hills. And I started dowsing, and I couldn't dowse to save my life. It was this pendulum was skipping all over the place like I was playing with a Teflon board. So finally dawned on me that maybe there's some other forces involved here. So a little bit of quick research realized that this was an area where there were Native American communities, and there was protection over this area, and I wasn't wanted. I had no permission to be there. And so I went into sort of a semi-trance meditative state. I stated my intent to the guardians of the property, asked permission to dowse for the benefit of the property and the current owners and the development of a spiritual community. And when I did, it was kind of like a big resistance wall kind of falling away. And then after that, immediately I was able to successfully dowse. So it made a big impression on me. And this has been especially true in New Mexico, since there are a lot of Native American properties, hunting grounds, and so forth in New Mexico. With the Pueblo Revolt here, there was quite a bit of turmoil with the Spanish soldiers, and just a lot going on here that really have to account for and be aware of. A good example was at a well that I was dowsing near Santa Fe, a town called Galisteo, and there were sheep ranch that had no water. They were trying to get water, and I visited that and realized really quickly that the place was a huge Native American site where they had a village, burial grounds, quite a number of things, and the presence was very strong there. And I asked and got permission to dowse and got some really great locations, but the owner of the property was kind of doubtful about my ability or permission and what was going on. He had his own hammer drill and so forth. So he hesitated for a year, and we came back and said, well, why don't you come back and recheck this, recheck it, and see what's going on. So I did. He came back. He hired psychics. We spoke with the Indians. He did a number of things. I think after 2 or 3 years, we finally got to the point where he was confident enough to drill. But the thing is, we got permission to dowse, but he did not get permission to drill or get permission to have access to the water. And we were pretty sure from having at least 3 dowsers dowse the same thing that I got, combined with psychics, impressions, so forth, that we had really, really good aquifers in the area. And so we were pretty confident at that. However, there was no permission given to actually retrieve water from the ground. So I think actually some of the aquifers were moved. They drilled down beyond the point where we were supposed to connect with the aquifers, and they actually hit water, but it was alkaline water. So that was not much of a bonus on that. So that was another lesson, is you've got to really pay close attention to what you're doing and work with all aspects of what's going on.
Yeah,
so,
indeed.
Very important. But also another thing, too, is interesting about dowsing is you're working with a holographic universe, which is outside of time and space. So when you tell people about moving an aquifer, they get kind of leery that you're actually going to go underground and physically move this aquifer to another location. And I've actually dowsed and moved aquifers 20, 30 feet to where I like to be. The thing is, if you miss an aquifer, you can almost move it to get it back in the hull. It's pretty simple. And since we're working in the holographic universe and you accept that in your consciousness, it's no big deal. Whereas those who are tied to the physical think you're kind of a magician or weirdo of some sort who thinks of these things. And the same goes for map dowsing. I've had a lot of people who call me in New Mexico or even Colorado and ask me if I could do some dowsing work for them. I said, fine. Just send me a plat or something, a map or a sketch that I can work with so I can dowse, see if you have water. And they said, how can you do that? You can't be there. You have to be on the property to dowse for water. And I said, well, not necessarily so. Diagrams are just indicators of what's actually there, and we can narrow things down. Especially don't want to be walking large distances and be subjected to outside influences when I'm on the property. There's been ranches here out western New Mexico that are several sections in size, a section being 1 square mile. And, you're talking about many miles of walking to get to different aquifers and so forth. So it's a big consideration. Plus, if you have a property that has no water or has alkaline water, there's no sense in you going out there. You can determine that pretty much right away from the start. However, a lot of people just don't accept this. They think you're a charlatan or something of the sort, and then they will say, well, thank you, and never hear from them again. So certainly a consideration. And then there are people that will spend $10,000, $20,000 to drill a well, but they want the dowser to come out and work for free. I'm not sure how that works, but the value is the dowser is kind of low compared to the driller who actually comes out and puts holes in the ground and gets water for you. So, there's a lot of education that really needs to be done with the public as far as what dowsers do and what they can't do and, what's going on with their universe and just the theory of practice and operation here of what's what in the world. So, but so far with dowsing, my accuracy has been pretty much over 90% of all the wells. So I suspect that some of the misses are because of not getting the proper permission or mis-drilling on the place of the drillers. You can be a half degree off, and if you have a 500-foot or 600-foot deep well, you're going to be off several feet. You can miss the entire aquifer. And, of course, the person they blame is going to be the dowser, not the driller. So something to be aware of.
Yeah.
And then, in my experience, too, you rarely hear from a dowser, from a property owner, if they hit water. But sometimes, you'll always hear from them if they don't get water. So it's kind of a strange thing. A lot of interesting experiences. The more the merrier, too, in dowsing. I took a whole class project out to a dowsing site, and we all worked together, sort of a class in process, and doused water wells together, and it was very, very good education. And we doused some good wells where we had crossing aquifers, and I got a call, from the ranch owner, and he said, we've got the biggest amount of water we've ever experienced. So thank you so much. So I think that's important. I discovered that in my dowsing classes as well, that I certify different dowsers, is that group consciousness makes a huge difference. If there's belief and somebody can do it within the group, then there's no reason why we can't all do it. There's that positive can-do experience. It's kind of like Uri Geller and the children bending keys. Nobody told them you can't do it. So there's that collective consciousness which considers that we can do it. There's nothing to really stand in our way. So makes a huge difference in all kinds of workshops.
So Gary, what is your process of moving a vein into the hole that's been drilled?
Well, I find out where the aquifer is, and put a metal rod in the ground, usually rebar or something like that, in the middle of the aquifer, and then I hit it. Number of strikes. Apparently, there's some sonic energy that moves the aquifer, and if it's not enough, I'll hit a little bit more until I get it where I want it to be. But I also ask permission and ask the spirits to help guide this to where it needs to be, because you can certainly overshoot if you're not careful. So it's important to be aware of that. And a lot of it is related.
Dynamics.
What's that?
Yeah. All the dynamics.
Dynamics, yes. Getting permission, working with the spirit of the land. I think all parcels of property that are kind of delineated through, property ownership and boundaries, all seem to have a spirit of the land, which is kind of an earth-centered entity, being that creates a lot of energy and supports the vitality and well-being of the property. So if you address this and ask for permission and ask for assistance for the highest and best benefit of the property owners and the property itself, you will usually get cooperation. I do this as well when I'm clearing homes of noxious energy, detrimental energies, ghosts, spirits, things of that nature too. I always address the spirit of the land. One of my biggest challenges was I had a house that I was dousing that had a portal. It was in the guest house bedroom, and it was centered right over the guest person's bed, over their solar plexus. And so these people would always have to leave the next day very, very ill, very, very sick, because this portal was over their solar plexus. And so I located where this was, and I thought, wait a minute, a portal is a hole. It's nothing. How do you move something that's nothing? And so, again, I worked with the spirit of the land to move this to a location that is right and perfect, in harmony and balance with the nature, and not to bother anyone. And that works every time. Works very, very well.
So when you go out to douse a well, what tools do you use?
I usually use a pendulum or L-rods. One thing you have to be careful if you ever have a windstorm or very, very windy, it's difficult to douse because you have all this pressure on your body that moves your tools around. So the only solution to that would be a really heavy pendulum on that. But I usually use a pendulum and L-rods. Don't use a wide rod very often unless people like to have a show. If they're paying money, they want to really know that you're really doing something important and magical. So I will whip out my super heavy-duty L-rods that are giant aerials and show them how this works. So that's what I usually use, and it works fine. But also body dowsing will work as well. Just simply using your hands, and you can feel the pressure when you hit the aquifer boundary. And it's just a matter of using your dowsing code and statement of what you're seeking and looking for boundaries and the best place to drill on that. But I always do as much as I can in advance via map dowsing, even depths and so forth. In fact, I even adapted Ed Stillman's technique of adding 50 feet onto the depth just to make sure. There seems to be some distortion in dowsing sometimes when you're dowsing underground.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that seems to have worked out very, very well.
It's worked out well for me too.
tack on 50 feet, and the people are almost happy. That way, you're guaranteed you won't disappoint them. So that works out well.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
As you know, I've done the same thing.
Yeah. So that's good. So use the same techniques for dowsing power spots, vortexes, sacred sites. Love to douse Sedona because it's just loaded with all these different sites and energies. Also got very much involved with using dowsing to locate ETs and UFOs. In fact, when I lived in California, the Santa Cruz Mountains was a really, really big hangout or location for yellow UFOs. So one of my favorite things to do would just get out a trail map, find out where all the spacecraft were, see if there were any on the ground, and douse it out, start heading out, locate it. So it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot out of that process. One
Did
of the big things.
See some?
Pardon?
Did you actually see some of the UFOs?
Yes. A lot of them, some of them are cloaked, some of them were what we call higher dimensional. They were dowsable, but people couldn't normally see them with your normal vision. That's one of the nice side benefits of dowsing is the fact that if you can douse something, then there's no reason why you can't see it. And we all know that water wells, if you look at aquifers, it actually produces an aura coming above the aquifer, which I think is responsible for the dowsing. People have auras which can be doused. You have spacecraft, you have geometric energy fields, and all these are dowsable, but they can be seen by the third eye quite easily if you turn your filters off. And the more you practice dowsing, the more it becomes a natural part of your awareness. And after a while, it just becomes second nature to begin seeing these things. Okay. So it just really depends upon how much a person is locked into the physical five senses and the 3D, the world. But when you go beyond that, they call it shamanic world, higher dimensions and frequencies, you'll know that there's a lot more going on that we don't normally see. So ideally, once you get to the practice, you should be able to look over a piece of property and simply see where the aquifers are. And of course, you can body douse as well because your aura is interacting with the aura of the water as well. So it's an interesting process. Also use dowsing to locate ley lines, and ley lines are very interesting because they have, I guess it's called interactive consciousness, where you can actually access Akashic records and information, holographic information in time and energy. And when I was president of the San Jose chapter, we did a lot of experiments during class or meetings in which we'd go out and locate ley lines and then have put the water containers on these ley lines and ask that it be programmed with this energy. And you could actually see sort of a yellow-colored hands come out of the earth and envelop the water and program it. And one time we actually, people were lamenting that we missed the eclipse because during a solar eclipse is really fascinating from the standpoint that all the ley lines of the planet tend to shut down. No Earth energy whatsoever. And people were lamenting that we missed that. So we just located a good ley line. We asked the energy to simply recreate or go back in time to that time where it occurred and let us experience it. And we all did. And it was pretty amazing that we were able to directly experience that. So another validation that dowsing works outside the box, outside of time and space. Also, when I was dowsing here in New Mexico for water wells, I became acquainted with the spirit of the land. And I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but I knew there was something there. We were looking for water wells on this property that was several acres in size. And I said, well, there's an interesting energy source on this property. Let's go investigate. Found out that this energy source was coming from a ravine in the property. Went down there, located the spot, and put our hands down to feel it. And hands actually came out of the ground and grabbed our hands. So it kind of raised the hair in the back of our necks.
I guess.
Not bad.
And we told other people about this, and they were so excited about this that we had about a caravan of about a dozen people that went out the next day to have that experience as well. So there's a lot of things going on. You just simply have to be open to that. But over time, I discovered that I can work with the spirit of the land to help and assist in the dowsing on that. So I think the more you can be open to what's actually going on energetically in all dimensions, the more successful you're going to be. Because even my home, when I moved to New Mexico, I was dowsing and couldn't douse. And it turns out that when they were building the house, the children involved didn't like all the commotion and movement, so they put a curse on the house and the property. And I couldn't douse worth a hill of beans because of this curse, because it just puts a barrier between you and what you're trying to access. Once I realized what was going on, then I was able to address this and release this curse and continue to successfully douse the spirit of the land from my property, and which was get a lot of help. And there's another aspect as well, which goes beyond the spirit of the land, with just simply natural nature spirits, fairies, gnomes, many different elementals that are all involved in the process of land as well. And they're curious what you're doing, and they can certainly influence your dowsing if they don't like what you're doing or you don't have permission. So it's good to really be aware of all these things, even if you can't see them or be aware of them. Speak to them directly as if they are there, and they will respond to you. And oftentimes you will feel a big change or shift in your energy, a shift in your dowsing ability, because a lot of times there's protection. There's like a force field or energy field around properties that can be of great resistance. Once this is released and you're working on the positive side where you have assistance rather than resistance, you can be very, very successful. Anything else, Sherry?
Great. That's very, very interesting. Do you have any, like, really favorite water dowsing experiences?
Favorite?
Yeah, what's your favorite water dowsing experience?
Well, I don't know if it'd be favorite. It's most traumatic. I think I put a picture of me dowsing on my refrigerator for a while because it was quite an accomplishment. I've gone down to Mexico, and a lot of we call intentional sites, echo retreats, things of this nature being developed down there, and they always need water, of course. Mexico is a real challenge because you're looking at elevated limestone seabeds that have come up to form the Yucatan area, which is where I usually worked. And it's a bit of a challenge because you have water that's intermixed with saline water, seawater, and you have the challenge of locating potable water. So that's a bit of a challenge on that. So and of course you're getting permission. There's a huge Mayan influence there, and you have to get permission from the Mayans. There's guardianship that is still there today. It's as strong as ever. And there, if you don't get permission, you just don't, not only don't get results, you get whapped in the head with some energy. So it's very, very important to know what you're doing down there. But my biggest challenge was we had these properties, and I was dowsing there in the middle of a tropical storm that was on the verge of a hurricane. And I had this jungle property. It was literally jungle that you couldn't walk more than 6 inches or 12 inches a few feet because it was just solid, tight jungle. And we had two fellows with machetes ahead of us clearing a path, and here we are slipping and sliding, trying to get to these spots that I had map dowsed prior. And here you are with all these cut trees that are acting like booby traps if you ever fall on them. So, and I was soaked to the skin, wet with rain pouring down all over me, soaked to the skin, dowsing for water with a pendulum in the middle of a jungle. So that was a real challenge, but we did find some good water well sites, and we actually found some Mayan ruins as well. There weren't no, we found some altars and things of that nature. So Yucatan is pretty much loaded with a lot of Mayan ruins. So almost everywhere you go, you'll find them. So very successful with that, and things worked out. And it's a bit of a challenge. Sometimes it can be a challenge if you're working with people who totally doubt your ability or don't doubt dowsing and so forth. They can put a real negative damper on things, which makes it that much harder to tune into what's going on around you. So it's really important to have supportive dowsing and so forth. I had one water dowsing in Aspen, Colorado, in which high in the mountains, very convoluted, disturbed, mountainous geology, very, very difficult, a lot of voids, rifts in the geology. People weren't finding water. And here I was trying to douse for water in these sites. We had people all around, doubted your dowsing, and I had one fellow who had some L rods running around in a motorized scooter with L rods, yelling, "Water's over here, water's over there," and so forth. So that's kind of a difficult situation to douse in. So, and we actually didn't get water as a result of that, because I think the drillers who had drilled before weren't able to locate bennies. Or people sometimes will drill several holes, pay a lot of money, and finally give up as a last resort to ask for a dowser. And then you're what we call under pressure dowsing.
Yeah.
Said, if you don't hit this well now, we're dead, we're out of business, we're out of thousands of dollars, blah, 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 and it's all on your shoulders.
Yep.
And if we don't hit water before tomorrow, it's all your fault, and we're going to lose thousands of dollars. So, it's kind of a ironic situation.
Yes, it is.
So,
how do you deal with that, Gary?
About what?
With being under pressure like that.
Well, I think the best thing to do is to simply walk away and say, well, I'll come back later on this afternoon, or remove so-and-so from the property. Use your dowsing to clear the energy. The big thing, too, if you have dowsers in the property, which there were, looking for water, they're leaving thought forms where water is, where they think it is. Well drillers have come in and put holes in the ground, no water. So you have all this convoluted energy going on, and you just need to really clear it out, get it stabilized, get the interference down as much as possible, get the permission and belief level up to a high enough possible, get the spirit of the land to work with you. However, there may be situations, I think Ed may have encountered this as well, is that it just was not intended for people to be on the property.
Exactly.
And there are other forces at work. And they might blame the Dowser and so forth, but when you sit back and look at it and really what's going on, their permission probably wasn't there. And I have several people that I have dowsed for, and I'll tell them straight out, you don't even have permission to be on this property. And they get all flustered when I tell them that. And they said, well, this is Native Americans' hunting grounds, and they have protection on it. And if you don't ask them for permission to build and own the property, be on the property, you're in violation. And this can cause all kinds of problems with the landowners, because you could be hit with illnesses, you could be hit with all kinds of bad fortune and things, and not knowing why. And it's all because, ignorance, basically, of what's going on and asking permission of that. So a lot of times I will find this out and try to get permission for the property. But like Ed says, if it's really the universe is working for the people's highest good and all that, and they want them to not move to this property, they want them to go where they are now or some other situation that'd be more beneficial, then the universe can work with that. So there are a lot of forces at work going on. And if something you may want to use your dowsing to do some inquiry about what's really going on beyond just locating the water, but also the forces involved. What's going on with this family, what's going on with this land. Look at the larger picture as you possibly can, and sometimes you'll find a caveat that doesn't allow this to really even happen. So, something important consideration. And belief is very, very, very important to that in dowsing or any kind of dowsing. If you don't believe you can dowse or don't believe you can do something, then you just don't have it. There's a conscious intent in goings into dowsing and through manifestation and working with the elementals and working with the what we call the 3D hologram. And it's difficult, and it's known that our thoughts do influence the reality over time. And so it's important to take all these things into consideration. We're kind of floating in the air in many dimensions trying to tack something on to dimensional reality, which in reality is simply a hologram. So we're tuning into the holographic universe aspect of it, which can be highly influenced by conscious thought and interference from many, many different directions. There have even been cases where I'll be dowsing and there'll be a spacecraft on the property. And another consideration, because spacecraft put out a lot of energy with their propulsion systems, and they can really mix up your dowsing for water very, very quickly. So all the properties that I douse, one of my questions is there any ET influence on this property at the present time? And especially true here. In fact, it turns out I'm in New Mexico here. I'm about a mile from a volcano here, and it's a really big hotspot for UFOs here. A lot going on, and a lot of people have actually physically seen UFOs come down with brilliant lights zigzagging around. We had one instance where we saw this happen over the volcano here, and we simply consciously projected a thought form to this spacecraft that had a big searchlight looking for something. And we said, hey, we're over here. Immediately the spaceship turned around and it started coming toward us and shone this big bright light on us. And we said, uh-oh, we're in big trouble now. And Of course, they were very, very serious. So he said, well, we're just here exploring. And so they realized that what we were, and went back to resuming their own research, their own search, whatever they're looking for. So a lot of mysterious things going on in the world, a lot of mysterious energy. Dowsing showed that there's underground caverns underneath this volcano. So many, many things happening that can really influence, the overall dowsing. So if you're not aware of them or don't dowse for them, you're kind of putting yourself at risk, because there's potential of this distracting you from what you're trying to find from them. And
well,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, with everything you've talked about here, which is a lot of things for people to consider, especially beginners who want to become a water dowser, what kind of advice would you give a beginner water dowser?
Well, first off, I said if you're a beginning dowser, I would go out with someone who is experienced, has some degree of experience. This is why I enjoy taking groups of people to an actual dowsing job and go to the site, and they can be directly involved and experience it directly. And that's a win-win situation, because the dowsing ability, like I say, seems to be contagious. If people can do it, automatically their mind says, well, I can do it too. And so people learn a lot in a very short period of time, and it gets a lot of reinforcement, supports their belief. But if a person who is a beginning dowser goes out to a property and a person standing over them demanding that find water, that's a bit of a pressure putt for the people. So I would say start out slow, work with somebody who has some experience, so you get some training, and work with the different tools, find out what tool you like the best, and just be patient with your dowsing. Dowsing itself is very, very natural. I think the biggest thing is giving yourself permission, because you're always fighting the conscious mind saying, well, this is not rational. This does not compute in the 3D world. And you're having to fight that and say, well, yes, it does, because I'm getting results. So it's a matter of getting both sides of your mind to work together on that. It's pretty much what I had to do when I worked for NASA's problem solving. I had my engineering side, then I had my dowsing side, and trying to get them to work together. And sometimes it can be a challenge, because your conscious mind wants to control everything. And if it says this isn't going to work, and you listen to that, then you're in big trouble. So, but I ascribe to Gary Zukav, has a really good book, about working with the 12 senses that we have, and it seems like we all come into Earth plane, so to speak, when we're born with it, and then around age 7 or so, we lose this natural awareness ability due to peer pressure, and just because it doesn't seem to fit, or your parents think it's weird, and they don't like your invisible friend, and so forth. So with children especially, I think it's important to support this in them and to continue with that, and don't associate any stigma with it. I taught my niece and nephew dowsing, and they were terrific. They were out dowsing me, showing me things that I never knew existed. But as soon as they got older and became teenagers, you couldn't even mention it. They would not admit to it or anything, because they didn't anything woo-woo like that. They didn't want to associate with it because their friends would be outcasts, So it's important to continually support that and say it's a natural thing. It's kind of like belief in UFOs. Everybody thinks it's a big joke, ha-ha, and bull, so forth. And so if you make it a big joke, it doesn't exist, But like dowsing, when you get to the truth behind it, there is something there if you allow yourself to experience it. But we're we're the controllers of our belief and our awareness, and it's just a matter of over time and giving ourselves permission to let these realities become a part of our existence. You might say it's the shamanic dowser, in which you become aware of energies and auras, spirits, nature, and so forth, the universe, the absence of time and space, and then you realize that map dowsing is very, very important because it can help you a lot. Usually the map dowsing you can get within about maybe 5 to 10, maybe 20 feet at the most where the actual site is. So it gets to be fairly accurate. Unless you have faults or things of that nature that can distort the energies. But a lot of things going on, and over time you get better and better at it with confidence. So my statement would be simply perseverance and belief and faith, and just go do it. I think Bill Cox's video called Discover Dowsing is one of the best primers that you can have for dowsing, because he was right on, and I would encourage everybody to watch that video. He pretty much lays it out. With that, it gives you a really good primer for what's required. Okay?
Is that available on Dowsers.org? On the ASD site?
I don't know if it is or not. I'll have to research that. I know he has since passed away, but I know they're continuing with his used to be called Pyramid Productions, I think it is. They're continuing with that. His wife, Debbie, is continuing disseminating his information. So I'll look into it and let you know.
Okay, doesn't she live near Santa Barbara?
Yes. I think Debbie's still there.
Yeah, I talked to her on the phone last year. And so at any rate, yeah. So there is a website for him, at least there was last year. Yes.
I haven't spoke to Debbie in quite a while, but last time I talked to her, she was promoting and making Bill's archives available for people. So I think the dowsing is really excellent because in 1 hour you've got it all encapsulated.
Yeah,
so highly recommend it. Another thing that I work with as well too is called the Bovis chart, and I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's Anton Bovis was a dowser that worked in Egypt at the Great Pyramid at different sites and used a chart to measure the life force or vitality, bioenergy units, and so forth of different aspects of the pyramid. And he was a dowser, and his chart became quite valuable to really evaluating what's going on with different energies and different situations. And I have since then expanded that chart because the energy is getting higher and higher on Earth, and it's up to 100 billion now. It used to go 0 to 18,000, and now it's gone up to 100 billion. So, which beyond that starts to go outside the box, but it measures the relative life force or chi value of something, which is always good to work with properties, individuals, energies, and so forth, and let you know right away whether you want to work with somebody, some person or some situation, if the energy is too low or if it's high. So it's another way to evaluate things. And you can evaluate what's the potable and palatability of this water for this property, and you can get a value of the water. We know dowsing for water, Mount Shasta in California, been able to find water sources with very, very high life force values. So it's just another way to look at things and can give you a lot of information. And even if you don't know something or don't know how to identify it, you can certainly douse the life force of it. If it's very low, then it's something that we better stay clear of. If it's very high, it's something to learn more about. So it's just an evaluation process. And you can do this as well with basic numerical charts using Letter to Robin's famous dowsing chart, multi-purpose form, in which you can douse, 0 to 100% or 0 to 10, plus or minus 10, and so forth, to really evaluate the validity of something or how viable. As Ed used to say, he would work with his dentists and doctors on that. We use that in the basic dowsing school at the conferences. So a lot of fun just evaluating what's going on. So just another window to look at things.
Sure. Yeah.
On that. We miss you, Ed.
Well, I've retired now, but I'm enjoying working with Shari and just being a part of this great organization that we've put together here for the last 3 years. So
good. Well,
yeah, it's been a
Marie.
really good way
you
for
and
me
Mary
to keep...
Marie in the dowsing school.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she and I were doing it good.
Good. Okay, well, that's any other questions? I don't know how we're doing time-wise here.
Ed, did you have any more questions for
yeah.
Gary?
I'd like to bring up what happens when you find multiple soil structures. For example, they can either be many different structures in one well that you're trying to drill, or it can be they can be different completely, just in different areas of where you're working. Have you run into something like that, and do you have anything to tell me about that too?
Yes, I have. And what you could do is you would start dowsing, you'll notice that there's probably a difference as you get down in depth. I experienced this when I was working with clay, fibrous clay.
Oh, yeah, I know that one too.
Yeah, but you get fibrous amount of water and so forth, you just can't get it out. But
that's right.
I would douse the different layers, the different types of soil, what their permeability is and so forth, and and then go from there, and then find out what depth your aquifer is and what it has to get through. But I doused this one well for this rancher that hit this clay, and you can always tell clay because your dowsing becomes very soft. You're not getting hard response, sharp responses. You're getting very soft. You're hitting a sponge, so to speak, full of water.
Yeah.
And so, and I told the person, and they didn't believe me, and they put the driller out, and they just drilled another spot on the aquifer and got the same results. I said, see, well, I'm sorry, we're just in an area of clay. So we went to another area of the property and doused where water for crossing, and we got a huge aquifer. So it makes a difference. But I would address that, individual layers, map it out. It's kind of like a spectrum of porosity and conductivity.
Yeah,
and
I'm with you
go
on that.
from there. I think that was one of my problems in Colorado too, is that you're working with soil geology that's very jumbled and volcanic, and just a number of different things all mixed in together with geologic processes. It makes it very, very challenging. So, because you have all these energies you're dealing with, and I think they can actually cause deflection. They can deflect energies so that water will appear someplace where it's not actually at, and you have to go beyond the deflection and get to the source. So it can be tricky.
Yeah, I know. I've had my time with that kind of trickiness too. Years ago.
I think you get the award with that 1,900-foot well at an enchantment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sedona.
Yeah, that was the deepest one I've ever done.
And you must have been dealing with Native American influence there as well, I'm sure.
Well, there was a Native American influence all around enchantment, literally there.
Really?
And, just on the, oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So I had to be very, very careful getting that one put together. But enchantment worked out great. So I was very happy with how we got it.
Yeah,
got it done.
That's quite an accomplishment.
1,900 feet, yep.
So your next job, if you choose it, would be to douse in a tropical storm in the jungle.
I think I'm going to pass on that one.
Yeah.
But that would be quite an experience.
Oh, boy, I was so miserable. I put that on my refrigerator and I said, look how comfortable I am now compared to there. You know?
Yeah.
Because it was just a mess. So, but anyway, well, I think how are we in
Sherry,
time?
Shall we open up there? Sherry, what's your next thing here?
Oh, okay. I just want to know if Jeanette or G had any questions for Gary.
Hi, Gary. This is Jeanette from NorCal Dowsers, and I'm curious to know on your archaeological digs, where did you go? Was there one particular special place that you've gone around the globe in your dowsing, and what energies did you find?
Well, archaeological dowsing covers quite a bit of area. Years ago, back in the 80s, I was involved in a research group looking for Atlantean records, of all things, in Egypt. And we took a trip to the pyramids, another dowsing situation where we were dowsing for underground tunnels in the middle of a sandstorm. So I ended up with a pitted pendulum and a sandblasted face, but we found many, many things. And again, there's a lot of protection around that and so forth. Much of my dowsing was in Yucatan, Mayan pyramids and so forth, and Mayan sites. And learned there you kind of like, you're peeling away layers when you're dowsing, archaeological dowsing, because you go back in time, you go through different layers of civilization. Some are friendlier than others. And one of my sites, I think it was at Uxmal, I was dowsing a pyramid, and I got back to a period where there was a really angry, benevolent Mayan priest who didn't appreciate my appearance there, and he let me know about that. So, you have to be careful and use protection when you're working with these sort of things. So it's been very rewarding because you begin to understand the secrets of what the Mayans and what the ancient civilization understood and how they worked with the elementals, worked with their spirits and so forth. So the same thing working with spacecraft and ETs and UFOs is the fact that they're usually here for a reason. Most of them are refueling, so to speak, over ley line crossing, vortexes. And so all these things can be learned from the invisible world, but there's actually something going on. So, I enjoyed all these things. I'm looking forward to going to Machu Picchu, which is on my list right now, and working with the ancient civilization there in Punapuco, which is looks like it was a ancient alien base at one time, thousands of years ago, and it's highly machined blocks of construction that are there that's been researched. And if you watch the program called Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, they have a lot of really interesting information about all these different sites that are part of this. So. But dowsing in England and Stonehenge was especially rewarding. The energies that have been put into the stones actually got to actually go into the site twice and worked with the stone energy there, where once you tune into the energy, all the stones actually begin dancing. And it actually happens. It's quite an experience. And so the earth is magical. Crop circles, I spent several years visiting crop circles in England and all over, which you have the earth energies involved as well. So important consideration out of all this is that earth is a living entity, and it can respond to you and work with you through ley lines and through grid lines and so forth, and respond to you. And I think this is how a lot of the crop circles were created, where you create a pattern, you impress it upon earth consciousness in its collective process of manifestation, and the crop forms. So it's pretty exciting stuff. So the sky's the limit, and just work with it. Over time, you'll be successful with it. You make sure you use protection with this, because many things going on. I went inside this tunnel under this pyramid complex in the Yucatan. Person tried to take a picture of me, and the picture came out. It was empty. Nobody was in there. So a lot of very strange processes going on that we can all learn from. I think that Earth over time has had many great civilizations that have come and gone, and if we rediscover these things, we can really benefit from them. I had a process a couple of years ago where I visited Bimini, which is, according to Casey, was part of Atlantis. Went there, was able to locate a dozen sites that had huge crystals and generators on the island, and discovered 2 temples on the island. So we actually were able to visit one where we had to go out in a boat through the mangroves and go to this called a healing hall. We were so high with the energy there that we were high for the next day, just dancing around. People have been healed with cancer and all kinds of things. So there's a lot of amazing things that you can explore using archaeology, tuning into what the ancients knew. The recent site in Turkey, 12,000 years old, highly advanced civilization. So I think Atlantis, there's so much evidence that it's existed and it still exists. So these things are just up to your imagination and your openness to Taoism and be aware of, but there's much to be learned from it. We don't really need gas and oil. We all know that. And they didn't use gas and oil in the past. And as far as 5G goes and things of that, I've learned that the Atlanteans actually used electromagnetic radiation as a weapon. So something to be aware of.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm sorry if I stretched that a bit much, but
that's very interesting. No, we love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But archaeology can be very rewarding because it's like going into a treasure box, and you just go by layer. And we discovered that ETs were doing some research at a couple of pyramid sites, actually 4 in the Yucatan. I had a class. We all went down there. We had 30 people in my class went down to the Yucatan, and we visited these 2 sites. And we actually found where your crystal sites in the site that were generating energy that we could program our own crystals from. So these were healing sites, and I think experiments that were being conducted with the Mayans at that time. And so we learned a lot. This was both Uxmal and Mayapan were the 2 sites that we explored, and there were 2 other sites as well. So a lot of people, including Linda Bolton Howe, is one of our investigative reporters here in Albuquerque, there's a lot of people believe that the Earth is just a big experiment, human experiment, and we're to go out and discover things, and they discover things about humans. So much going on here to explore. But we were all able to program crystals with the different power sites, validate their existence, douse the energy fields and beams coming off of them, and have healing tools to take home with us. So many benefits. Okay?
That's so interesting that you can combine the dowsing with archaeology and what you're looking for.
Yes, it makes a difference because, especially, you have so many different beliefs. You have all these ancient Mayan energies going on, and there's probably civilization prior to that. And so it's just fun to go through the different layers and discover what's going on, and sometimes taking home a few benefits that you learn from that. So I think cancer and all the different things, even the coronavirus, can be healed. I'm working with a device right now that I developed on information that I douse and the assistance to put out an energy field in the area that will actually prevent the coronavirus from sticking to cells. So I can't really go out there and ask somebody if you benefited from this energy, but I can douse that it's working and have it a positive influence on the local environment. So it can be used for healing and prevention.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
At this time,
any other questions?
Well, would you like to give out your contact information?
Yeah, you can go out to photonrevelations.com, and there you'll get more information about detrimental energies. You can actually download my Bulbous Chart, Life Force, which is a PDF. I put in there also Walt Wood's dowsing chart and Letter to Robin, so it's a good resource. And I talk about photon energy there and different crystals and tools and things of this nature that I'm working with right now. I've been able to work with different sites. I've taken back crystals from Bimini, ancient Atlantis, and put them in different pyramids and devices to generate energy that's healing. So it's just a lot of research, a lot of fun, and a lot of possibilities that are available to us. And my email is dowsergary@comcast.net. If you have any more questions on that.
Great.
And I usually do give workshop field trips every year, and we have quarterly meetings, but in lieu of that, we may be doing an online Zoom conference get-together on that, so we'll see.
Well, please let us know about that.
Sure.
Yes, I will do that. So, any other questions? Did anybody email any questions?
No, we haven't had any emails about any questions, but I think we'll have Jeanette do a wrap-up, and then Susan has another announcement.
Okay.
So, can you hear me?
Thank you so much, Gary, for sharing your wealth of experience, over 50 years of dowsing as an instructor, speaker, writer, inventor, tour guide, earth energy researcher, explorer. And thank you for starting up your own dowsing chapter in Los Lunas, Willow Bender's dowsing. That Bulbous chart is very cool, and I love how you have that available for people to explore and use. And Barney turned me on to your Bulbous chart and you, and I'm so glad you're out there sharing the information, because we need you out there, and you're fun, and you usually speak at conferences, which we've been able to meet. And if you haven't met Gary, he's fun. He's always got some invention he's working on. It's nice to know that you also started as a young person dowsing at 14 years old. I appreciate how you give honor to your mentor, Bill Cox, And his DVDs are available also on ASD. A few of them are left, and I believe his wife has some as well. Thanks for sharing about your biofeed company. And this is hard to imagine, but it's great how you have a 90% accuracy. I mean, you've been doing it over half your life, and that's pretty high. That's pretty excellent. So if anything, you stress openness and awareness. And you're right, there is a group consciousness that we all play in, and I thank you, Sharon and Ed, for giving this water dowsing conference, because we're all sharing in that group consciousness, and hopefully we're making this world a better place.
Right.
And I thank you for Sharon was asking you about the process of how you may move a vein into a hole. And I like how you're talking about the earth energies, and you're asking permission and the spirits. You're asking permission to douse. You're talking about clearing homes, and the tools that work for you are the pendulum and the L rod, the auric fields. You had mentioned everything pretty much has an auric field, from ley lines to aquifers, humans. Or one of your many exploring sites that you've been to. And what I liked about you is you talked about the spirit of the land. And for us to be successful, we want to increase our openness. And your challenging event in Mexico, you still douse. You weathered the storm, literally, even on a foot of water.
Yeah.
And for the newbies, thanks for giving us just start out slowly and find a mentor, find a tool. So this applies for everyone. And if we look at the successful dowsers, they've been doing this. And if they anyone going to visit your website, they can start off slowly by visiting the letter to Robin and seeing your other charts, the Boba scale, and they can contact you as well. We thank you very much for sharing the magic that you play here in the world, and visit photonrevolutions.com for more information for Gary. Thank you for being on the program.
Okay, you're very welcome.
And Gary, this is Susan Spooler again. So when we have the Flagstaff Dowser Conference next October 6th to the 13th, 2021 in Flagstaff, Arizona, I know that I've already asked you to be a speaker for that. We are going to have a Vortex tour. Bob Gilman will be giving the Vortex tour, and Tom Dongo will be leading a night tour in Sedona to look for UFOs, and I hope that you can come and join us as we douse.
Oh, that's exciting. I'll certainly be there.
I am happy to hear that. Wouldn't be a conference without you. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, thank you for continuing that tradition.
I'm happy
Carolyn
to do
Stillman.
It. That's right. Ed and Carolyn, that's right.
Yay.
All right.
Thank you very much, Gary. This has been a wonderful call with a lot of information, and I'm sure you got a lot of dowsers excited about so many things they can actually douse for. Okay. And I'm sure they're looking forward now also to our online conference. And also, I'd like to thank Jeanette for the wrap-up and everything that you've done, Jeanette and G, for manning the switchboard there at the last minute. I appreciate that.
Happy to do it. Thank you so much.
Would you like to do like a little closing prayer, Jeanette? I know I didn't ask you ahead of time, but I just thought it might be appropriate for this time.
Certainly, I'd love to. And before I do that, if I can just interject, just to give some people somewhat of an introduction to the West Coast Conference, virtual conference coming up. If anyone is interested in learning a little bit more about the Go-To webinar, Susan Spiller's doing 2 talks on the 25th coming up for the Golden Gate Dowsers. And you can go to, I should have really Susan talk about it, but it's on deviceless dowsing methods with Susan Spooler. And also for the NorCal Dowsers, she's graciously sharing her online webinar on the 3rd of May, and that's going to be Dowsing and Manifestation. If you go to norcaldowsers.com, it's still uploading current information, but you can get the phone number and you can access it through a device or through the internet. And there's a series of numbers. But Susan, if you want to interject at any time about your webinar and how people can
sure.
listen in,
Yes,
please.
Absolutely. So I'll be using the platform of GoToMeeting, and the login information will be available through the NorCal Dowsers chapter, as well as the San Francisco chapter. What's the name of the Golden Gate chapter? They'll have the information on their website as well. So everyone is welcome to join us.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Okay. Well, I can't thank everybody enough for being present here, and I thank Sharon and Ed for having this water dowsing conference call, and everyone who's participating, because it is a consciousness and a group effort. Lots of love. Thank you, Susan and Scott, for sharing announcements and information, and thank you, ESG, for offering this as an outlet for all of us to come together and share in this changing globe. And I want to thank all the Sky Dowsers participating and here presently with us, so we can come together, help one another, love one another, appreciate what's going on in the globe, because we're all making a difference with a little love, peace, and joy. And thank you, everyone. Thank you. And so
okay. Thank you. So it is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Yes, thank you.
Matt, everybody, Susan, everyone, Scott too. And
Okay. Well, thank you, Shari. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless everybody and stay safe.
Okay.
You too.